Welcome back, curious minds. Today we're tackling one of the most audacious prison breaks ever. That's right, El Chapo's legendary tunnel escape. But first, let's break down the plan. In the summer of 2015, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman did something that most people would think is straight out of a Hollywood thriller. He escaped from a maximum security prison, not by overpowering guards or scaling walls, but by disappearing into the earth itself. Yes, that's right. El Chapo made his grand exit through a tunnel. A mile-long tunnel, right under his cell's shower. But this wasn't just any tunnel. This was a marvel of illicit engineering. It was not just a hole in the ground. It was a fully equipped escape route, complete with ventilation to ensure fresh air, lighting to guide the way, and a motorcycle on rails for a speedy getaway. Now that's what I call an escape vehicle. But let's take a step back. How feasible is such a feat, really? Well, first off, let's not underestimate the sheer physical effort required. Digging a tunnel of that length is no small task. It's back-breaking, sweat-inducing work that would take months, if not years, of continuous effort. Then there's the technical aspect. This tunnel wasn't just dug, it was designed. It had to be stable enough not to collapse, yet discreet enough not to be discovered. It required serious engineering skills, the kind you don't usually find among your average prison population. And let's not forget the tools. You can't dig a tunnel like this with just a spoon or a pickaxe. You need serious machinery, and that's not easy to come by in a maximum security prison. Of course, it's hard to ignore the elephant in the room. Corruption. To pull off an escape of this magnitude, you would need some inside help. In fact, you'd probably need a lot of it. So how feasible is this really? Well, digging a tunnel of that length and sophistication requires not just time, but serious engineering skills and tools. And a bit of corruption might help, too. But let's get creative. What are some other wild escape methods El Chapo could have used? Imagine this. Instead of the grueling task of digging a tunnel, El Chapo could have opted for a more aerial approach. Picture a hot air balloon lifting off from the prison courtyard, carrying El Chapo to freedom. It's certainly a whimsical idea, and it certainly would have made for quite the spectacle. But would it have been practical? Not so much. Hot air balloons are rather conspicuous, and they're at the mercy of the wind. So, while it might make for a great story, a hot air balloon escape might be more at home in a Jules Verne novel than a maximum security prison breakout. So, if the sky's the limit but a balloon won't cut it, what about a stealth drone? Drones are small, fast, and they can fly under the radar, quite literally. A stealth drone could potentially fly in, pick up El Chapo, and fly out again before anyone was the wiser. It's a thrilling idea to be sure, but it's not without its challenges. The first hurdle is the drone itself. It would need to be strong enough to carry a person, but small enough to go unnoticed. Then there's the issue of control. Who's piloting this drone? And how are they doing it without being detected? And finally, there's the small matter of actually getting El Chapo onto the drone without raising the alarm. Stealthy, it might be, but easy, it is not. But whether it's a hot air balloon or a stealth drone, these alternative escape methods certainly add an element of excitement to the mix. They might not be as practical as a tunnel, but they're certainly more imaginative, and who knows, with the right resources and a dash of audacity, anything is possible. Sounds less sweaty than digging, right? Okay, so maybe the drone needs a bit more work. As we can see, orchestrating a great escape isn't quite as simple as it might seem in the movies. Now, it's all fun and games here with our toy drone, but in reality, a drone capable of carrying a human would have to be quite a bit more sophisticated. You're probably thinking, well, drones are pretty high-tech, right? Absolutely. But let's break it down a bit. A drone capable of carrying a human would need to be significantly larger and more powerful than your average hobbyist model. We're talking about a drone that would need to carry at least 200 pounds, likely more, when you factor in El Chapo's weight and any additional gear he might need for his newfound freedom. Now let's think about the noise. Drones aren't exactly known for being quiet, especially the larger ones. The buzzing sound of the propellers could potentially alert guards or even nearby residents. And then there's the issue of visibility. Even a stealth drone isn't truly invisible, particularly when it's carrying a fugitive from a maximum security prison. But let's not forget about the technical aspects. Operating a drone of this size and power would require significant skill and experience. And it's not just about getting the drone off the ground. There's the matter of navigation, avoiding obstacles, and landing safely. Plus, there's always the risk of mechanical failure or interference from external sources. And finally, there's the issue of legality. Drones, especially those capable of carrying humans, are heavily regulated. An unauthorized drone flight, particularly one involving a prison break, would likely result in swift and severe consequences. So, while the idea of a drone-assisted escape is certainly intriguing and might make for a great Hollywood blockbuster, it's not quite as feasible as it might seem at first glance. But the point is, when you think about escape, the sky or the underground is the limit. After all, who would have thought a mile-long tunnel complete with lighting, ventilation, and a motorbike could be a realistic escape plan? It just goes to show, when it comes to audacious escapes, there's always room for a little creative thinking. So what do you think? Was Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's infamous escape a stroke of criminal genius or an overblown spectacle? Let's face it, digging a 1.5-kilometer tunnel underneath a maximum security prison, complete with ventilation, lighting, and a motorcycle on rails, is no small feat. It takes a certain level of audacity, cunning, and yes, engineering know-how to pull off such a daring escape. But what about our alternative methods? Could El Chapo have traded his shovel for a hot air balloon and simply floated his way to freedom? Or perhaps he could have employed the use of modern technology, swapping the dirt and grime of the tunnel for the whir of a stealth drone. Sure, these methods might seem a little outlandish, but when it comes to escape, isn't thinking outside the box, or in this case, the cell, a necessity? Now, I'm not suggesting that any of these methods are foolproof or even feasible. After all, escaping from prison is a serious crime, and it's not something we endorse or recommend. But it's interesting to speculate, isn't it? To imagine what could have been if only El Chapo had a little more imagination or a little less fear of heights. So, let's hear from you. What's your take on El Chapo's escape? Was it a work of genius or a desperate act of a cornered man? And what about our alternative methods? Could they have worked better, or are they just flights of fancy? And if you were in El Chapo's shoes, hypothetically speaking, of course, how would you plan your escape? Would you stick to the tried and true tunnel, or would you dare to try something a little more unconventional? We're eager to hear your thoughts, and if you have any wild escape ideas of your own, don't be shy. Share them in the comments section. After all, who knows? You might just be the next great escape artist. But remember, only in theory. Until next time, keep those creative juices flowing, and remember, the sky or the underground is the limit. Comment below with your thoughts, and if you have any wild escape ideas of your own.